Welcome to the Global Gratitude Summit. I'm Luann Saraga Walters, and this is
Sharon Saraga Walters.
And we're very happy that you've joined us again today. And today we're talking about the workplace. So for those of you who want some motivation in your workplace, boy, do we have the speaker for you. Her name is Lisa Ryan. She is the Chief Appreciation Strategist and a sought-after expert in employee engagement, working with companies of all sizes and shapes throughout the United States and Canada. Her specialties include strengthening workplace culture, improving employee engagement, and initiating gratitude strategies, which she calls gratities.
Love it.
We love that. For personal and professional transformation. Her high energy, enthusiastic delivery, and quick wit are matched in real-world insight and actionable ideas that transform the doom and gloom atmospheres of chaotic corporate cultures. And if you're in one of those, you really want to listen to this talk today, into environments that promote mutual respect, accentuating dignity, and of course, gratitude. So we're so honored to have you speaking with us today. Gratitude strategies to boost your business and lift your life. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
And with the magic of Zoom and the magic of technology today, we actually can do this Global Gratitude Summit. And here you are. We're in Florida. And where are you based out of?
I am in fabulous Cleveland, Ohio.
Ohio. Wonderful. And you do a lot of work throughout the U.S. and Canada, as we saw.
Yes.
So if, by the way, speaking to our viewers and our listeners right now, if you need to book Lisa, please go to lisaryanspeaks.com and make sure that you can book her for your next corporate gig. Fantastic. And I'm sure you're going to want to do that after today. So we're just so excited to have you. I've been in that corporate culture where you're going, oh, please, someone come in and help us. Let's find out a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here, Lisa. And I'm very intrigued to hear more about this. One of the things I was curious about is we love your title. How did you become the Chief Appreciation Strategist at Gratigy? Another great word. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. It actually started in 2009 with a fire walk. So I don't know if you've ever done a fire walk before, but this is not a euphemism. This is a walk across a 12-foot bed of 2,000-degree burning embers. And when my friends and I were driving home from that, we were pretty excited. You might actually say we were fired up. I know. But anyway, we also knew that unless we took action, that our lives would go right back to where they were before. We didn't want that to happen again. So we opened up a Facebook thread, and every day we wrote down things we learned, people we met, experiences that we had. And one of my friends said, hey, why don't we write down 3 things that we're grateful for? Okay, did it every day and held each other accountable. And it was that practice that I started with no expectation of return that really changed everything. It changed my personal life, my business, everything. I had wanted to be a speaker since my very first Dale Carnegie class in 1987, okay? But I never knew what I wanted to speak with. I had been in sales and really didn't want to do that. I just was kind of struggling with a topic. And when I discovered the power of gratitude, I knew that that was the message that I was supposed to share. I also knew that it was 2009 and corporate America hadn't really started talking about the power of appreciation. They were just actually starting to get into employee engagement. So my whole focus on creating this culture of appreciation and bringing that to the workplace where they would be able to see the benefits to their employees as far as higher engagement, higher retention, higher recognition. And 9 years later, it's still working.
So Lisa, you're talking about gratitude at the self level first.
Oh, absolutely. It has to start there, because if you're looking at employee engagement as something that you have to do to your employees or for your employees, and it just becomes another thing that you check off, it doesn't matter. What gratitude does is it shows us the power for ourselves first, which I know in our time together, we're going to talk about the show process, but show is taking a look at the gratitude from the self first. how it changes our perspective. Then we feel better, so we have health benefits. Then we can improve our relationship with others, personally and professionally. And then the W is that's our wealth, that's the workplace, that's changing the culture. But unless we have those other three first, it's not going to make a difference.
So Lisa, so it sounds like that your clients really respond well to these ideas. Is that your experience of that?
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, my clients, I focus primarily on manufacturing associations. So most of the time when I'm speaking to a group, it's 90% men. And I tell you, they get it. I mean, if I'm speaking to an HR group where it's 60% women, it's the same thing. But because we're talking about something that resonates on a heart level, on a soul level, it's in simple language. I'm not coming in there and it's not fluffy, it's not spiritual. I don't incorporate any spirituality into my programs at all. It's research-based. I'm sharing with them stories and how it works in the organizations so that they're just seeing it. Whether they believe it or not, they have the opportunity to experience it for themselves. And like I said, they get it. That's why they keep having me back again and again, because it's, I can say something that would be looking as soft, but I can present it in a way that they get it.
Well, I like to call that where the woo-woo meets the wow. It's like we know things that work, but sometimes we hear that the ethereal discussion of it, and it sounds kind of way out there. But then when you bring in research like you do, which is awesome. So you mentioned a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit more about what kind of research points you're making when you're speaking with the companies that you're talking with.
Well, the one research study that I always use is by Dr. Robert Emmons. He's a PhD professor at the University of California at Berkeley. And one of the first books that I read was his book called Thanks. But Dr. Emmons took a random group of students. He divided them into three. The first group, he had them write down the things that they were grateful for. The second group, all the troubles, all the hassles, all the things that bugged them. And the third group simply recorded the day's events. So they were the control group. And what he found after 10 weeks is that the gratitude group was not only 25% happier, they exercised on average an hour and a half more per week. They complained less often. They had fewer physical ailments. And there is a lot of research when it comes to autoimmune diseases, neuromuscular diseases, that people fare better with the practice of gratitude. They were more happy, joyful, enthusiastic. But then when Dr. Emmons asked the people who were associated with the gratitude group to know if they noticed any difference, they actually did. They found that the gratitude group was more emotionally available. They were nicer to be around. Dr. Jeffrey Froh did the same type of work with middle school kids, exact same study, but set up in middle school. And he found that gratitude group 6 months after the survey, they were still finding that those kids were the ones that were happier. They did better on their test scores. So over and over and over, the research shows that this absolutely works.
That's phenomenal. And have you crossed any path with any other research talking about the benefits? Well, there's got to be some. I imagine there is some about lifting employee morale and how the productivity of the company is also enhanced.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, one of again, there's so much to choose from. One of the ones that talked about, Marshall Lasada did a study on teams, and he watched the way that they communicated with each other. And what he found on a high-performing team is a 6-to-1 positivity ratio. So basically, for every one negative thing a person would hear on that team, they would hear at least 6 positives. And this isn't always like, oh, yay, everything you do is so good. This is respectful communication. That's a really great start of an idea. How can we build on that? On an average performing team, it's 3-to-1. This is basically an even balance. Those employees are rowing the boat fast enough so that it doesn't sink. But on a low performing team, it's 0.3-to-1. 0.3 3-to-1. So they're hearing 3 times more negatives than positives. I like to say it's kind of like being in bumper to bumper traffic. For every one person that smiles and waves and lets you in, there's 3 people that are honking on the horn and giving you the finger. So we want to stay away from that in the workplace, because we spend so much time trying to fix what's broken instead of doing like Tom Rath talks about in Strengths Finders, to find the good that people are doing and to help them to do more of that.
Well, so far we've covered the S and the H in your show process. And what I like about that H part too, health being applicable to your individual health, but also to your office health. So
Absolutely.
That's, it's a great flow that you've got. And I can see where you're captivating their attention right away and teaching them, how to make these changes. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other studies that I really love, HeartMath also has lots of studies for health, but the one that really gets people is when I talk about the study that they did that compared for anger and compassion and its impact on the immune system. Because what they found is for every 5 minutes you spend in anger, you actually reduce the effectiveness of your immune system for up to 6 hours. Those same 5 minutes actually spent in compassion will elevate the performance of your immune system for those same 6 hours. So I'll tell people, so all those people that you're letting live rent-free in your head, they're killing you. Stop it. And sometimes when we can take that into the office, when we find that one person that we just can't stand, we don't look forward to being around them. Okay, find one good thing about that person. Lisa, there ain't nothing good about that person. Okay, if you had to find one good thing about that person, what would it be? She wore really cute shoes yesterday. All right, you start there, because when you start to change your energy around that person by looking for the good, by choosing positive emotions, now we're feeling better ourselves, but we're also allowing the people around us to feel better as well.
And I think you have success. Is that part of launching into that O of the others and the relationship with others and how gratitude,
Yep.
It's interesting because that might be, for some people, far more challenging than noticing yourself and starting a self practice of gratitude, especially because we do have people living rent free in our heads and they become an ingrained process, right? It's like holding on to them. And the workplace or the work family, as some, companies will say, this is your work family. Boy, you can just be absorbed in that kind of angst and anxiety and antagonistic feelings. So have you ever had anybody who's come to you and said, wow, I do have these things and I'm having difficulty with conceiving of good things about other people. How do I get out of that?
It starts with committing to the practice, because this is not something that we're wired for. We are wired for negativity. We look for things to go wrong. It's easier to focus on the bad. It's easier to focus on that than to find the good. And this goes back to caveman days. If we were nice to the saber-toothed tiger, for goodness sake, it would eat us. So although these practices sound like they're common sense, they're really not. So it's telling yourself as you're white knuckling it on the way to work, oh, I can't believe I got to put up with this person. Okay, what's one good thing about this person? And start to change your attitude, because the thing is, you think that you're hiding it, but just like when somebody doesn't necessarily like you, they know when you don't like them as well. Probably one of my favorite stories was there was a woman who told me about a woman that they worked with. And this woman was kind of like the one that everybody hated her. She hated them. It was a poisonous, toxic, horrible relationship. And then this woman had a tragedy. Her husband dropped dead of a heart attack, and she was left with 3 small children to take care of. So the people that she worked with started reaching out to her and, oh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do to help? Oh, I'm so sorry. We're here for you. Let me know what I can do. And as they started reaching out to her, she started thinking, these people aren't so bad. And as they got to know her through the process of going through this tragedy with her, they started to think, wow, she's actually pretty nice. So over time, this woman became one of the most beloved employees in this organization because they took the time to kind of take that step back and look for the good and reach out from an attitude of caring and goodness and making things better for this person. And it paid off huge in that workplace.
Wow. That makes me think of how oftentimes tragedy will bring us closer together. I mean, we think of our national tragedies, we think of familial tragedies, and that's interesting. So I guess the moral of that story is, why wait for the tragedy?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. The thing is that we don't know, and this is where we may be crossing the line a little bit, but when it comes to, we don't know if that last conversation we have with somebody will be the last conversation that we have with somebody. So always looking for the good. Every time I talk to my husband, the last words that I say to him are, I love you, because I don't know. And I never want to have any regret. Same thing with I'm still blessed to have both my parents on the planet, my siblings on the planet. That's how we close our conversation. I had a opportunity several years ago when my first husband was dying. He had stage 4 pancreatic and liver cancer. He was given 6 months to live. 18 months later, he's still hanging on, but it was getting close. So he started making phone calls. And I was one of the people that I was blessed. I mean, Jeff and I we were always friends. The marriage didn't work, but the friendship did. And we had this amazing conversation where we really, went through our lives together, because he had been with me for more than half of my life. By the time I knew him, started dating him, engaged, married, divorced, hung out together, whatever. But most people don't have that opportunity to have that closure. And Jeff and I spent about 45 minutes on the phone. Our last words to each other were of love, I love you. And mine was also, try to contact me from the other side, which hasn't worked, just so you know. But I feel very blessed that I was able to have that closure with him. And, he's out of pain and in a much better place. But like I said, most of the time we don't have those options. So make it a point every time you're around somebody to make sure that they know how much you love them, how much you care about them at work and at home.
Absolutely. I know you were biting at the bit a minute ago.
Well, it kind of to shift gears a little bit. I was curious, do you go into the businesses once, or how many times, how long does it take to really make the difference in these businesses?
To see the shift.
I go in, I do the program, and then what happens, because again, being that these are associations, there's lots of different organizations that are there. So from there, generally I get what they call spin-off business, and that the people who are in my audience will then call me and invite me to come. So I've done, like this Friday, I'm doing a leadership retreat. Sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're 4 hours, but then I look for ways to stay in touch. So depending on the way that their programs are set up, they may not have me back, for another speech like that or a workshop. But what I do is make sure that I take care of them. I have a 7-part video series called The 7 Mistakes Managers Make to Crush Company Culture. So once a week, they get that video that they can share with their team. It's about 4 to 5 minutes long, so it's not taking up a lot of the day. And then they also get Gratitude Thought of the Week, which I like to refer to as a short inspirational message that seems to show up whenever you need it. It comes out every Thursday, as it's been doing since 2011. Mm-hmm. And the stories that I hear from Gratitude Thought of the Week that's what makes it all worthwhile. That's how I know how this is working. Some companies will use it for their employee meetings. Some people just take it for themselves. But it's that weekly reminder of the things that we have to be grateful for, instead of just kind of that one and done.
Well, for any of our listeners or our viewers, because I'm sure that there will be plenty of people who both watch and are listening, as that's a very popular podcast medium now. But an association is made up of a variety of organizations that may come together for an annual event or something. So you actually have the ability to really sprinkle gratitude dust on a lot of different corporate cultures, which is
Absolutely.
that is an awesome way to reach out and throughout, the North American area. Wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
You've talked about in the show process the application to self and how that can also, gratitude can improve our health, how it can improve our relationships with others. So now we have the W, which is
Wealth.
wealth.
Wealth. Yeah, wealth. And in the corporate way of looking at it, it's workplace. So how do we take everything that we just did with self, health, and others, which again is the correct order of them, and now we take it into the workplace? So things like that positivity ratio of trying to get from that 0.3 to 1 to a little bit closer, at least 3 to 1, but a lot of times what happens if managers are out of practice when it comes to talking to their employees and expressing appreciation, I tell them about starting with the apology approach. And the apology approach says, I haven't been letting you know how much I appreciate you and the hard work that you do here. I'm going to make more of a concentrated effort to do that. Because otherwise, if you're out of practice thanking your employees, the first time you do, they're going to be, she never thanks me. What does she want? She must know some. So we start, we have to start, and it has to start from leadership, from upper leadership, because otherwise it's just one more check mark on the list. But with that being said, one person can make a difference. It's the power of one thank you, one act of kindness, one acknowledging somebody else's efforts, because you have no idea what happened to that employee 10 minutes before they walked in the door into your office. You don't know what is going on with them at home. You may be the only bright spot in this person's day. So we look for that. Also, when you're starting your meetings, because face it, nobody likes meetings. Unless there's food, nobody likes meetings. So unless we start, what if you started your meetings with, let's share 30 seconds of good news. What's going on with you personally? What's going on with the projects that you're working on? Let's start off by raising the energy by talking about things that are good in the office. Many of my clients, after I came in to talk, they'll put up a gratitude wall. They buy handwritten thank you notes so people could handwrite to each other. They come up with different awards, different ways of peer-to-peer acknowledgement. What we do is we kind of get the brainstorming going so they realize how many ways they can recognize, acknowledge, appreciate, applaud the efforts of the people that work for them and with them.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So do you recommend that if somebody is trying to do a cultural shift of this kind, say they've come to the association annual event and there's a CEO in the office of the organization or an executive, a president or whatnot, and they hear you and they say, we're ready for this. Our organization needs this. We need to apply what Lisa's saying, and we need to do this. Should this be something that they do in stages, or is this something that can be done throughout the organization all at once, or should it be started at the top and then filtered down? Because you're talking about practices that have to be kind of, people have to get used to them a little bit. What do you recommend for an organization who's looking to change?
It varies with every organization that I've been to. Probably one of my favorites, I went into a manufacturing plant and they had me do 5 75-minute programs in one day, 1 for management and then 4 for the people in the shop.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was, and the first one, because it was a manufacturing facility, of course, the first one started at 5:30 in the morning.
And the next day you went to the spa, right? And had a massage.
Exactly. But the interesting thing about that is this was a union shop. So 5:30 in the morning, these big burly guys with attitudes are walking in like, what's this girl going to teach me type of thing. And I made the program all about them. We went through the show process, and basically I said, I give my disclaimer. I don't care if you take home anything from here that's going to make you more productive. I don't care if it makes you more profitable. I don't care if it does any good to the company at all. What I do care is in the next 75 minutes, if I can give you some strategies that can help you have a better relationship with your spouse and your family and your kids, have less stress in your life and more happiness, would that be helpful? And they were like, yeah, because they walked in thinking that, oh, this is one more thing management's going to do to, squeeze more effort out of us. And making it all about them. The other thing that I loved about that program was that I was probably the first motivational speaker that most of these people had been exposed to in their career. And to me, that was an honor to show them these little ideas, these simple strategies that they could use. Several of them came up to me with tears in their eyes afterwards. The women, not the men, but they still got it. And years later, I'm still hearing from them. So then with management, I put them through my thanks process, which is focused more on the culture itself. The main thing is this is not one and done. This is something that, too many times, squirrel, we look for those bright, shiny objects.
Which may feel that way sometimes, right? Yeah.
It does. And companies will get, they'll get all jacked up on a new idea. Woohoo, we're going to start to implement this right away. And in 2 weeks, it doesn't work. And then they give up on it and go, that didn't work. It's like, unless you're ready to suck it up for the long term, to realize that your employees may not trust you right off the bat, to know that your corporate culture took a long time to get to where it's at and it's not changing overnight, you have to be ready and willing to look for these little things that we can do day in and day out, when times are good, when times are bad, that we are going to be consistent in our commitment to doing these things. Because otherwise, it's just going to be like one more bright, shiny object. And we've all seen the magic of those disappearing.
And that can be really frustrating from an employee standpoint. And that can actually decrease morale again and again and again. An employee can get their hopes up only so much that something's going to change or get better. And then that faith gets so eroded. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lisa, what is your number one reason why companies need to seriously consider implementing strategies?
Because they work.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because when you look at the Gallup numbers, only about 30% of employees are actively engaged. When you have active engagement, they have a best friend at work. They bring more value to the organization than you're paying them for. These are your rock stars, and pretty much you know who they are. About 50% of employees are disengaged. Basically, they're doing just enough work so that they don't get fired, and they're probably earning just enough so that they don't quit. And then we have that bottom 20%, those horrible, toxic people, where your rock stars light up the room when they walk in. Your problem children also light up the room when they leave. So Gallup has had these numbers since the early 2000s, and they're not changing much, unfortunately, as a whole. Now, there's some companies that are doing awesome. They'll have 75, 80% engagement, and these are the companies that will make the list for the Forbes 100 Best Places to Work. In Cleveland, it's the North Coast 99, where companies are being recognized for the good work that they do. Mm-hmm. And then other companies don't do anything. And those are the ones that I hear the stories. And when you think about it, when people start leaving an organization because of the culture, is it the best employees that leave or the worst employees? And most of the time, it's your rock stars that are saying, I'm out of here. Right. So we have to find ways, because right now we have a shrinking talent pool, particularly in manufacturing. where for every 4 positions that are open in manufacturing or the trades due to retirement, which is going to be even more so because most of the employees that are in manufacturing right now are between ages 45 and 60. So we don't have, but for every 4 people that leave, they're only finding 1 interested qualified applicant. So you don't have the luxury anymore of being able to put out an ad and have, hundreds of qualified people come knocking at your door. It's trying to find ways that how do we keep the top talent that we already have, because they're valuable and they also know that this is an employee market. If I'm not happy with you today, I got a job tomorrow and I don't have to put up with you anymore.
Wow. Well, I'm sure that you are making a huge difference in a lot of different companies. Is there one that stands out in your mind that happened, had maybe a success that you didn't expect it to be that quite the way it manifested?
I had one of my clients, and they were such a great organization to work with. They're a textile manufacturing plant. And when I came in, they took select people from each department. And they had from people from the shop floor to the office to management team. And they sat through the program. They participated in the program. And after that, they decided to put together an employee experience team. That what they were tasked with doing was basically going out into the plant and finding out what the employees want to make their jobs better. And one of the first things that always kind of cracks me up is the people in the plant wanted to listen to music. Well, when you have 200 employees, you can't necessarily have 200 radio stations playing. So what they did is they allowed them to wear an earbud at work, 1 earbud. And so they could listen to their own music. It had to be like up through their shirt, so it wasn't going to get tangled on the equipment or whatever. But then they also determined when somebody came up to talk to you, they had to take that earbud out so that they were showing the respect. And it's just those little things. It costs the company no money. It costs no extra time, because sometimes we get all wrapped up with, we don't have the money to put these programs into place. You don't need the money. If you take the time and ask your employees what they want, chances are it's going to be much less than what you believe you're going to have to give them.
That's why you're the chief appreciation strategist, because it's about strategies, right, to elevate the appreciation in your organization. Wow.
Absolutely.
I just had a big pow moment on that. That's awesome. Wow. I think we've got time for one more. You want to ask the last question?
Sure. So the $1 million question. So Lisa, what does gratitude mean to you?
It's become such a big part of my life the last 9-10 years that I've been doing this practice. I don't function as well without it. When things are going wrong in my life, it's like it almost becomes the very first reaction of, okay, what's something good about this? Now, the cool thing about being a speaker is when bad things happen to you, you just have new material. So you can always turn it into something. But it's been a way to connect. It's been a way, my husband and I have been married for 22 years. And because we're always focusing on the good, I never told Scott I was keeping a gratitude journal. Not that it was any big deal or a secret, but it was just my thing, not his. And it was that practice that made my good marriage even better. I mean, 22 years and we still act like we're newlyweds. I adore him. He's the best thing that ever happened.
Love that.
And that practice has something to do with it. I know that sometimes if I get busy and I'm out of town and I get out of practice for whatever reason, it's like, what's going on? What's missing? And it's like, gratitude. And because although I'm always thinking about things, it's that physical act of writing it down where you're feeling the pen in your hand, and you're seeing the words on paper and you're hearing the words. That's what really makes all the difference. We always want to feel gratitude, but when we take the moment to write it down, that what really cements it, and that what really changes everything.
Wow. Well, thank you, Lisa
Yes.
Ryan,
Thank
for
you.
being on the Global Gratitude Summit. Your work is special and
Thank you.
it's really inspiring and changing a lot of lives. And I know you're coming at it from that corporate angle because you're reaching people in that corporate world. And let's face it, half of our lives, maybe more, can be spent in that corporate culture. But you're
Right.
also giving the gift of enhancing somebody's skill to have that better life. And that, what better gift can you give? So thank you for the precious nature of what you're doing in your work. It's really special. We appreciate you being on the Global Gratitude Summit, and
Yes.
thanks for all you do.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And you bringing gratitude from 9 to 5 and beyond. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.